What is up, guys? J'espère que vous allez bien, que vous êtes en pleine forme. Bienvenue sur le podcast Conversation Awesome avec Karmakin. A place where we speak Franglish, say the word awesome a lot, mais surtout un endroit d'inspiration et d'éducation pour vous aider à optimiser votre santé globale from the inside out. Mon nom est Claudia, fondatrice de Karmakin, et ma mission avec ce podcast est de t'amener dans un monde de développement personnel, d'optimisation d'habitudes de vie et de découverte so you can unleash your potential and live the life you truly want and deserve. Merci d'être à l'écoute. You're awesome. What is up, beautiful souls? Welcome to the new conversation of the week. Today I have a special guest for us. The conversation will be in English. I am sitting down with Jenna, who I met only recently through a dear friend, soul brother of mine, Bharat. They did an Instagram live video together a few months ago, and I remember watching that video and I was like, oh my God, I need to have Jenna on the podcast so she can share her expertise and her knowledge and her wisdom. So here we are today. So Jenna basically uses herbal products, plant medicine, herbal teas to help us, with our health from the inside out. She helps people managing their stress better, improving digestion, improving her liver functions, working with trauma healing as well. And like I said, using intentional practices and rituals with these herbal teas and products and plants. So I really enjoyed picking her brain, and I learned so much from this conversation, and I know that you will too. If you have any questions for us, please reach out, share this with a friend, take some notes, and make sure you check her website and you place an order today to benefit from an amazing product. So without further ado, let's dive into the conversation. All right. Welcome, Jenna, to this awesome conversation. How are you today?
I'm so good. Thank you. Thank you for having me. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. Yeah, I'm super grateful that you're here. We don't know each other a lot. We know each other through Bharat, who was on the podcast before. I talk about him a lot. He's been a great pillar in my own personal development and just a great friend, great soul brother. So yeah, I heard about what you're doing and your work and your wisdom and your knowledge. And I was like, oh, this sounds like fascinating. And I want to learn more. And I'm sure the listeners want to learn more. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. And yes, he does have a way of connecting people, and he's a pillar in a lot of our journeys. So it's so nice that we've become connected.
Absolutely. So I'm going to let you answer that. What is it that you do specifically?
I do a few things. Mainly, I offer herbal medicines. So I actually make plant medicines myself, and I formulate them based on a variety of different health concerns. So I studied holistic nutrition about 5 or 6 years ago. And while I was studying holistic nutrition, I took a really strong liking to herbal medicine and also to energetic medicine, like how our emotions and trauma physically manifest as disease in the body. So those kind of things were my main loves when I studied. And then ever since then, I started making herbal medicines for myself and then family and friends. And then I was kind of encouraged to branch out to a few more people, because once you start working with herbal medicine, like there's just something about it. It's so powerful, and it can kind of lend a hand in so many different areas of life. So that's what I do mainly. And then I'm also a makeup artist. That's kind of my gig in the summer. I've been doing that for many years. And I also teach yoga. So just the whole like mind, body, spirit connection.
I love it. Were you always attracted to learn more about like nutrition and then eventually herbal medicine? And like, what was the journey leading up to you deciding to do a course or find out more about that?
Yeah. So for most of my life, I was an athlete. I was a competitive swimmer, and I also played volleyball and just really loved like physical movement and keeping my body healthy. I have that energy type that I do have a lot of energy naturally, that I find that I need to get it out in a physical way. And so I was always really into sports. And then being into sports, you kind of have some awareness of how nutrition impacts the body and how to fuel the body properly. Although I struggled on and off for many years with just body image issues and using food in a restrictive way or using it emotionally and a very, very up and down relationship with food for most of my life. And for quite a few years, it took up a lot of my mental space and it prevented me from doing things and experiencing things. And so around that time, I became more interested just in the relationship with food in general. And so I had been working at Starbucks, and a friend of mine was taking a holistic nutrition course, and she called me for coffee one day and she said, okay, you need to go to this school. Cause I guess like I have always been interested in, and also nature too, just like plants and nature and nutrition and health. And, you know, it's always been a part of my life in some way. So I guess we had always just had little conversations about it. And so she came to me one day and she's like, you need to check out this school. It's unbelievable. Like every time I'm in class, I just think of how much you would like it. So I ended up looking into that, and she was right. Like I looked at the courses, I'm like, this is amazing. I really love to be able to like take my own health in my hands, because I have had different experiences with doctors and with the kind of traditional medical system that have been negative experiences that I just wanted to avoid, you know. I lost a bit of trust in that system over the years, as many of us have. So, that's kind of how I was introduced into the holistic nutrition world. And then all throughout school, they kind of teach you everything. They teach you like a little bit of everything. And then it's your job to go from there and see, okay, like who do I want to work with? Do I want to work, you know? So I struggled a little bit figuring out in what way I wanted to offer things. But what I did know is that herbal medicine, just when I started learning it, just resonated with me on a different level. And, I say this to people a lot, because it's just interesting that course, like I didn't have to study. I didn't have to, you know, work hard at all. Like it came to me almost like I already knew it, and it was being reminded to me. So, and it was kind of the same with Ayurveda. So being a yogi and having practiced yoga for so many years, I was also interested in that Indian traditional medicine system, because it's such a mind, body, spirit medicine, and it goes so hand in hand with yoga and everything else. So there was an Ayurveda course in school as well. And then I went off to travel in India, and I learned more about Ayurvedic herbalism. And so everything kind of just came together in that way. Once I started learning about the plants, I was like, okay, like this is my thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. I can resonate to a lot of your story. I have a background in figure skating. So also like athlete, you know, like strong mindset, like goal setting, and being very, very strict with my training regimen and my nutrition. And then I had eating disorders and just body dysmorphia, and like going from one extreme to the other, and just rewiring my relationship with food and my relationship with my body, and using nutrition as a holistic way that serves me and that allows my body to feel good from the inside out. That's a journey I've been on as well, you know? So, and now when I teach my clients about nutrition, like it's not about follow your plan and good luck, you know, it's all of it. Like it's the holistic approach. Like you said, it's the relationship, the self-esteem, the body confidence, the balance between all of that. And then using, you know, herbal medicine or foods or some principles, you know, that you learn probably through yoga or like in India, which is, you know, always super interesting to help us heal from the inside out and have that good relationship with food and with our bodies. So,
yeah. And when we learn about nutrition on that fundamental level, like most people understand which foods might not be very productive for the body and which aren't. And yet so many people struggle with weight and struggle with health conditions brought on by improperly nourishing the body. And all throughout school, I was learning all this like actual technical information, right? About like nutrients and which nutrients are good for which disease and all these different things and why disease manifests. And yet I found that there's still a big gap between learning the technical side and actually being able to support someone on why they might be overeating, how they're looking at their body. Why are they not loving themselves enough to nourish themselves properly? And for most people, and I find especially women, just in our society in general, and then athletes, like you said, that period of like when you stop your competitive sport and then you have that period of like, I don't know what to eat and how to eat and how much to eat. And, you know, there's so many little in between areas where we need to work on health more from like a internal, like trauma level. And then it manifests on the outside as how we nourish our bodies and how we think of food and not being so obsessed and things like that. So it's amazing that you work with your clients on that, because there's not very many. I mean, there are becoming more and more people that are focused on that, but it's still not a main focus. Usually it's like, here's a meal plan. Good luck following it. And exactly. And it's like, that's not, you know, that's not healthy or sustainable for most people with the root cause issues that they have. So
yeah, root cause, like magic words right there, you know, like we come with so much baggage and experience and subconscious programming and limiting beliefs. And you know, and you mentioned the word trauma. Like, what does trauma mean to you? Because I find sometimes women will hear trauma and be like, oh, I don't have any trauma. You know, I never was like sexually abused. You know, I had a good childhood. My life is okay. I don't, you know, I have never experienced trauma. So that does not, quote unquote, affect me. But trauma is a little more nuanced than that. So what's your definition of trauma?
Yeah, I mean, I am no expert in trauma, although I really do enjoy learning more about it and learning from people like Gabor Mate and Peter Levine and people like that. But I mean, you're right in that it's so nuanced. And I just believe that trauma is, I mean, I think Gabor Mate said this, where it's not what happened to us, it's what we believe about what happened to us, or something along those lines. I always butcher like quotes and I'm so bad at that, but something along those lines. And it's like, sometimes trauma can be what we didn't receive that we should have received from our parents, or, you know, like I think of it now being a mother of a young one, like if I have a day where I'm really busy and my face is tied to my phone and she's beside me and all she wants is my presence and I'm pulled in another direction, then if that happens even too often, that is trauma, because that's her then believing that she is not worthy of my time. She's not worthy of my attention. And it's all those little patterns, right, that get inputted into our system during that time that then cause us to live our lives in a certain way, and have beliefs about ourselves and about the world and about how things work and everything. Right. So I think, yes, there are traumas that are like being in war, being sexually abused, being like those extreme issues, obviously. But then there are so many little micro traumas. I do believe that everyone is touched by trauma in some way or another, just with the world that we live in. There's also, I was talking to my great aunt about this the other day. There's such a collective trauma when all of us are so energetically connected. Not only are we really bombarded in the news and in the media and everything about every bad thing that's going on in the world, but also even if we weren't, we could still feel energetically what's going on in Syria, what's going on in Ukraine with those people, with people that are suffering. We all feel the residue of that in our bodies. And so I think that, yeah, there's such a broad range of what you could consider trauma, but it's important to honor all of it and, you know, work towards releasing some of those beliefs, I guess.
Yeah. And where does herbal medicine and plant medicine and nutrition comes into play to help us, you know, embrace it or acknowledge it or heal it?
I think it can come in so many different ways. One thing that Buddha and I were talking about even in that live is that oftentimes a traumatized person, or even with depression and other mental health issues, you're often at a point where you might not be at rock bottom, but you're definitely not like elevated enough to make maybe some of the changes that you do need to make to move forward in your life. And I find that herbal medicine is just such a lovely helper in situations like that, because sometimes it can be one of the easiest steps. You have something and you need to just brew a cup of tea for yourself or take a tincture or, you know, and then those plants work in our bodies in a way that help to nourish and soothe our nervous system when we've gone through a lot. They help to bring our body systems back into function. They can help to eliminate toxicity from the body. And we know that like an accumulation of toxicity in the body, it just wreaks havoc on not only our physical health, but our mental health and, you know, how we interact with the world. And so I think that herbs are such nice helpers on a physical level in that way. And they're like an easy first step for a lot of people. And then they can also go so much deeper in terms of like their energetics. So plants all have a different energy, and their energies can help work with our own systems. And so flower essences, for example, they're like a distilled, almost like homeopathy. They're like a distilled energy of the plant. So you're not actually consuming any of the plant matter. You're consuming like an essence of that. And yet it still works on a physical and energetic level in our body to move things through. And they're really good for emotional conditions like grief and trauma and heartache and worry and sadness and just those like emotions. They can work with us. And then plants also just have so much to teach us, even if we're not consuming them. An example that often comes to my mind is rose, because roses are so beautiful and so open, and yet their vines are covered in thorns. And so rose teaches us boundaries. Like in order to open and show all of our beauty and all of our magnificence in the world, we still have to have boundaries around that. And, you know, it's like different plants teach us different things, even how a plant grows and how some plants grow in such like resilient conditions, super dry conditions, super cold. Like I think of apples too, because apples are one of the only fruits that last past that first frost. And so I believe that consuming apples can be a way to improve our resilience and, you know, like take us through maybe a darker or colder period of time, physically or energetically in our lives, you know? So I think that plants can kind of weave their way in. And then also above that, just the ritual that they can create in your life. Like there's nothing so nourishing as brewing yourself a nice cup of tea that you know has plants that are actually going to, you know, provide nutrition for you, and just drinking a warm beverage and taking that time for yourself to show yourself that love and care. So it kind of weaves its way in so many ways.
Wow, so much gold in there. I think we all want to get some plant medicine now and start having our own rituals.
Yes, I hope so.
Yeah. Where do you usually start with someone who's never heard of like herbal medicine, never tried anything like that, doesn't have a ritual, doesn't know what they need? Like, how do you start with a client that's brand new to this practices and topics and herbs and all that?
It depends a little bit on what's going on physically with that person's body.
For sure.
So one of the first things that I like to do basically for anybody is a little bit of nervous system support in some way, because as you know, working with people, everybody has a very frazzled nervous system at this point, you know, with the pandemic and just even before that, just everything going on. And we also just live really busy lives as well. And I think that rather than, I mean, in my own experience, rather than look at it as like, I have to take things off my plate, I'm so busy, I can't do this, or whatever it might be, that might not happen because we live in a bit of a faster paced world. And what I am trying to do with my own body is just build up some resiliency and more strength and more vitality and power, so that I have that abundance of energy to give to all the things that I want to in my life, you know, because yes, we can let go of things that are just not serving us anymore. But I think for me, at least, I look around and I'm always thinking about what more I want to do and what more I want to experience. And so working on the nervous system and kind of increasing the nervous system's capacity is one of the first things that I like to do with people. So there's a class of herbs called adaptogens, and those are plants that help to improve our resistance to stress, increase our resilience. They nourish the adrenals, which are involved in our stress response. And they're often in overdrive and they're kind of depleted nutritionally. So adaptogens work on all of those different levels to kind of bring some resiliency and bring health back to the body. And then speaking of the nervous system and adrenal health and everything, it also plays into how other body systems work. So many women come to me for reproductive health issues, whether it's like painful menstruation or really heavy periods or missing periods or infertility or, just really bad PMS and things like that. A lot of women struggle with that. And a big part of that is that if the body is in an overactivated, stressed out state too much of the time, then all of our body's resources are going towards that stress response, and they're not going towards healing our gut, digesting, actually assimilating the nutrients that we're eating, nourishing our reproductive system, our organs, right? So that's a big factor too, is that once we can improve our resistance to stress and take ourselves out of that sympathetic nervous system state a little bit more often, then it has a cascade effect into all these other areas of the body. So that's one of my main ones. And then another one would just be gut health. As you know, gut and liver, our livers are very overburdened with toxins, and we live in a time where even when we're conscious of all the toxins and we try to eliminate fragrances and different things, we still have unbelievable exposure every day to toxins. So I think that providing additional liver support tends to be something that really helps people with many of their symptoms, just kind of giving more focus to the liver. And then of course, along with herbal medicine, it's important to focus on diet and focus on sleep and stress. And I do try to encourage people of that. I never want to be the type of person that's offering these medicines and being like, okay, they're just going to cure all your problems and you can just keep living your life. Yeah.
Keep eating McDonald's.
Yeah. Of course, people that are eating McDonald's every day, I would still like to see you on a liver support. At least that would maybe move the needle for you a tiny bit, but just not feeling that you're going to get a magic pill and then, not working towards some of the other things that are really important foundational tools. But those are kind of the main two. And then just a tea. Just introducing yourself to a tea and seeing how you feel about it, and seeing, a lot of people are like, herbal tea, something that doesn't even have caffeine. Do I really want this? And I find that they taste really nice, and they kind of switch it up from water a little bit, boring old water. You can have a nice tea. And so, yeah, I do love to encourage people to maybe start drinking tea, because there's just something about it, about that ritual that is really important. But people can always reach out to me as well if they have a specific concern that they're looking for primarily. Then obviously I can guide in a few different directions. But yeah, I would say those are more foundational things.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. If we go back to the nervous system, I feel a lot of people are like, oh, I'm not really stressed, I'm managing my stress really well. What are some common symptoms that you see your clients have that could indicate that their nervous system is all over the place, or they're in fight or flight all the time? What are some specific examples or symptoms that maybe somebody feels and could be a red flag?
Yeah. So anxiety would be one of them. Anxiety is also very tied into gut health as well. And imbalances in gut bacteria and just poor gut health in general is a huge contributor as well. But it's also a nervous system, an indicator that the nervous system is really frazzled. Memory issues, when someone doesn't feel safe in the body, and when that stress response is activated, then it's kind of almost like you're never actually living in the present moment. You're always somewhere else. And so anything that actually happens in the present moment, someone comes into the room, oh, can you remind me later that I have to go pick up my car? And you're like, yeah. And then it's just totally in and out, right. I find that to be a huge thing. Lack of focus, difficulty sleeping, feeling really tired when you wake up, feeling almost just unable to cope with all that you have to do in your life. A feeling of overwhelm, I feel is a really big indicator of that you're not often enough making it into that rest and digest, relax state. And then in terms of more physical issues, digestive issues are a super huge one. Because like I said before, when your body's in that stressed out state, its main focus is not digesting the food that you just ate. And I know this is said a lot in this kind of health world, but when your body is having a response like either fight, flight, or freeze, like you have to hide, like you have to run away from a tiger that's about to eat you, even if it's not that actual tiger and it's something just in your life that is causing a more like low level of stress, you're still activating that primal stress response. And so not digesting your food properly is a huge one, because people say like, oh, I'm eating all the right things and yet I'm still, you know, struggling with this, or I don't feel like I'm moving the needle with my healing. And sometimes you're actually just not, your body's not putting those nutrients together and actually able to put them to use. So digestive issues, yeah. And lack of energy as well. There's just so many symptoms that can be related to it, because it is it throws everything so out of whack, you know? So what one person experiences as a result of having a stressed out system is not what someone else will experience, and vice versa. But I think those are some of the main ones. And just to understand that even if you feel that you're coping well and managing well in life, I feel like most people that I talk to feel that they could be relaxing more, or that even if you do create the time and space in your life to relax, I'm like this is something I'm working on majorly, is like, if I've created the time and space to relax, I sit on the couch and immediately I'm just like, oh, that needs to be cleaned. Oh, this needs to be done. Oh, this, you know, so it's like, you're still like elevated in some way, where you just feel like you want to go, even if it doesn't feel like a bad go kind of feeling. It's still like, you know, too much sometimes.
Yeah. I think slowing down is hard for a lot of people, because we have the to-do list. We have what we quote unquote should be doing. There's some guilt sometimes that comes in, you know? So having that ritual, going back to making yourself a tea. And like, I think it's a great, almost like a great excuse, you know, to slow down and actually like, you know, take the time to indulge, you know, in that moment. But it's not easy. What are some tips or tricks or mindset shifts maybe that you're working on or using in your own personal life to allow yourself to slow down without being like, okay, I need to do this and all that? Like, what's that been working well for you?
I think that it's an ongoing practice for sure. Especially like as a mom, I find that before, like my life was just mine. I can just do this. Like I laugh so much because I used to work at a gym. I worked at a gym for like 5 years. I used to work the early shifts. So I would start at 5:30. I would finish at 1. I would literally have the rest of my day to do anything I wanted. I would go and do 3 hours of yoga every night and just like actually just chill. Yeah. And so I never thought that I would be the type of person to not be able to relax, because I felt like I was so good at it before. Yeah. And yet becoming a mom and just having this like increase of responsibilities and like things on my mind and tasks and to-do lists and cleaning, like the cleaning even after another person is like constant. And so I think what I've had to start to tell myself is like, all of us have so many things we should do, like a to-do list that would take days and days. Like we all do, you know, there are so many things that we want to accomplish in our lives, and that's a good thing. But I think at the same time, I've started to have to look at that list as like, what actually needs to be done for our health and safety and like well-being. And I will do those things. And then I have, you know, made other things a little bit less important. Like I've actively been like, that's not important. It might look like it is, but you know, I deserve time. I deserve space. I deserve, you know, to just settle. And like, we have these lives. What are we planning to do? Just go, and do for our entire lives until the end. Like, I don't really want to do that. So that's definitely something, is just kind of really prioritizing and realizing that not everything is a right now priority, you know? And then another thing that has really helped me is creating more structure in terms of my schedule. I struggle with organization, and I find that before I was kind of just flowy with life, you know, like go here and there and, you know, do what I want. And now that I have my own business and have different schedules to manage and all these different things, and I have a few different jobs and things like that, it's so important to actually schedule in my time. And then when I look at my schedule, I actually schedule in off time as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that like, maybe that won't be a practice for my entire life, but that's just a practice of like, okay, I see on my calendar that I don't start work today until 11, and I scheduled that for a reason. So I'm going to go to yoga. I'm going to go for a walk outside, you know? And so I find like the scheduling thing has really helped me in just creating more structure in my life. And then turning off notifications on social media has been another huge one for me that I didn't even really realize was such a issue really in my life. But when I started my business, I often have DMs of like questions and, you know, like, what should I get? Or I tried this or whatever it is. And all of them are welcome. And I love to get messages and feedback and all that stuff. But what I was doing was like, I had my notifications on. And so at any time of day, no matter if it was work hours or not, it was literally popping up and going bing, bing, bing all the time. And so it was pulling me out of the moment, first of all, but then it was like creating like a low grade anxiety within me, because then I'm like, well, what if that person needs something right now and I'm not answering? And then, you know, and so turning them off was like, it was like immediately my whole system just calmed down. And obviously you probably know that like those notifications popping up and stuff actually affects dopamine in our brain, and it gives that little dopamine hit, and then that we become addicted to that.
Yeah.
And so when we don't have it, and then it obviously also taught me how self-worth plays into that, and how I might have felt better about myself when more people were reaching out to me, because I'm like, people need me, people want to talk to me, you know? And then when I didn't have that, although that level of anxiety of not being like pinged constantly went down, I started to have those feelings of like people aren't reaching out to me, or, you know what I mean? Like, what does this mean for my business? And just all these different things. And it really makes you think like, wow, we have so much of our identities and our self-worth caught up in these devices and just in social media in general. And so, yeah, it's really, those would be the main things probably that I'm working on. And then just prioritizing moving my body. Yeah.
Great tips. I found for myself when I started to schedule off time in advance in my schedule, it would remove a little bit of the guilt. Yes. Because I was like, oh, I shouldn't feel guilty about finishing at 12 on a Friday, even though I'm quote unquote supposed to work until 4, 5, or 6 because I have my own business and blah, blah, blah. I planned this for myself in advance. You know, like I shouldn't feel guilty because it was already part of the quote unquote plan. So that for me is a great tip that I tell my clients to do as well, like scheduling, organizing, and planning. Just like you plan an appointment with your doctor, or like a workout at the gym, like plan your me time, you know, your off time. That removes the guilt a little bit. It did for me. So that's a good tip as well.
Exactly. And then hopefully you don't have to be so structured with it in the future when that becomes your norm. But I think that as we're transitioning from this extremely hectic way of life and living in a very masculine energy of constantly going and doing, and especially as feminine beings, that doesn't necessarily feel good all the time. And yet it's the box that we've been put in. So we do have to learn how to have a balance between flowing and just kind of going with the flow and seeing how we feel and moving with that. And then also having that structure. So creating that for yourself, at least until that initial guilt goes away, then
Yeah. Because then after you're like, I actually love this and I don't feel guilty at all. Like I need this and I'm going to prioritize more me time.
Totally.
Yeah. I want to go back to the liver after, but just to wrap up a bit about the nervous system, you mentioned adaptogens. Like what are some specific plants or herbs that we can use that are part of that family that can help with their nervous system?
Yeah, so there's a lot of adaptogens that I love. Ashwagandha is one. It's a calming adaptogen. It's also considered rejuvenative tonic. So it just kind of can help bring more vitality back to the body. Ashwagandha Eleuthero is another one that's amazing. It's one of my favorite. That one is slightly more stimulating, but not in a stimulating way like caffeine. It's just like, it's a really good one to bring in there when you are burnt out and like you have a life to live still, but your energy levels are just not there. That one's one of my favorite plants for that because it can kind of like give you a bit of a boost of energy. I also have that one in my Breathe tea, which is like my recovery, like almost like respiratory illness recovery blend, because oftentimes we're stuck in that really long haul of like recovering from these illnesses and the lack of energy is not there and everything. So yeah, that one's a really good one. Schisandra is amazing. It's very widely used in Chinese medicine as an adaptogen, and it's very nourishing to the adrenals as well. Tulsi is another one. Holy basil is one of my favorites. A lot of these Ayurvedic herbs, they have that gently nourishing quality, and they're very safe. Like they're almost like food grade plants, you know, so that you can have them in more regular frequency and quantities, and they're not harmful. Turkey tail mushroom is considered adaptogenic. A few of the medicinal mushrooms are, I believe reishi is as well. So any of those like functional mushrooms. And yeah, I feel like those are my top adaptogens. I know rhodiola is also an adaptogen. I just don't work with that one as much. But there's so many of these plants that can help, you know, build that resilience within our nervous systems. And then there's also plants called nervines, and there's a couple categories of nervines. So there's tropho-restorative herbs, which are considered nervine tonics. So those are actually herbs that go in and like physically nourish the nervous system. They often contain a lot of minerals. Our nervous system is it runs on like electricity, basically. So minerals, having an abundance of minerals within the body is super important for the proper function of our nervous system. And in general, minerals are very lacking in the diet because our soils are just so devoid of minerals that we're just not like getting the abundance of them that we actually need. And that's why magnesium supplementation is so important. Like that's actually one of the first things I recommend to anybody. And I used to work at a health food store, and I literally had there was a magnesium company, like a local one in Ottawa. And the rep came in one day and was like, you need to just like work for this company or something, because every single person in their hand as they were leaving was like magnesium, magnesium, magnesium. And like, there was no goal or sales goal or whatever, but it was just like, this people is need important. And so there's those nervine tonics. Oat straw is one that is amazing. If you can get your hands on oat straw or get a blend of tea with oat straw, I throw oat straw into a lot of my blends because it's just like, I want everyone to have it. It's a super, super nourishing, high amount of minerals. And then there's nervine sedatives, basically. So they're really good for that, like really wired, frazzled nervous system that might be like experiencing a lot of anxiety and just inability to sleep, inability to like just find a sense of calm, and like that mind is just going and going and going. So those ones are herbs like lavender and chamomile, passion flower, valerian, those really nice calming, like skullcap is really beautiful for that too. There's so many plants, and I feel like there's all these different like sects of herbal medicine depending on where it is. There's like Ayurvedic herbalism, there's curanderismo, which is more of like the South American herbalism, and then there's like traditional herbalism from North America and from, you know, like Europe and those kind of areas. And it's like using the plants that grow around you. And so there's so many plants that pop up in different climates and different ecosystems that are, you know, nourishing to all of these systems. They just pop up wherever they're needed. So
super interesting. Gotta re-listen to that and take some notes. Yeah, very cool. And then yes, if we go back to the liver, because this is something that as well, you said that you help people, you know, improve their gut health. The liver is always like overtraining or like overworking, doing like more hours than it's supposed to. It needs a little help. It needs a little love. It needs a little help. It's my favorite organ just for like everything that it does. Again, what are some like specific symptoms that we can feel that could indicate that our liver is, overtraining or in overtime or has like way too much toxicity and can't filter anything that it has to filter?
Yeah. So the first thing that I think of with that are like skin manifestations. So like acne, hormonal related acne or just acne in general, eczema and psoriasis. And anytime that the skin is kind of like flaring and acting up, oftentimes that's like there's an overabundance of toxins that are trying to be filtered through the liver. And when the liver is under functioning, then a lot of those toxins are circulating through the system and they kind of need to find a way out. And oftentimes that kind of like they find their way out through the skin. So that's a huge one. And even like the liver cleans our blood, right? So when the blood is not clean, then we don't have that like new, fresh, like skin being, like our skin looks a little bit more dull, I find. And hair, like scalp health is really like indicated in that too. If there's not enough like fresh, clean blood going to the scalp, then we might have problems with hair growth or just hair falling out or scalp health. And then also digestive problems as well, like the liver gallbladder. Like if we have an underproduction of bile, then we're not digesting fats in our diet properly. And fat is an important part of all of our cells. And so I find, again, that kind of manifests like physically as like skin kind of elasticity issues and things like that too. And then just obviously digestive issues. Like if you're not digesting fat, then your elimination is going to be a little bit different and just everything kind of gets sluggish and yeah, like poor elimination. I'm trying to think of anything else. I mean, sometimes if the whites of the eyes are like not very white, that's also like a sign that there's excess toxicity being built up in the body. And then it goes into hormonal imbalances and hormone issues too. And those are so tied to liver function. I find that for almost anybody that comes to me for reproductive health issues, one of the first things is always a liver support, because when the liver is not actually detoxifying excess hormones, especially excess estrogen, then that excess estrogen is being recirculated through the body and just causing estrogen dominance, right? Which causes all of those like PMS symptoms and hormonal acne and mood swings and excess weight gain and, all of the cascade of things that happen. Yeah, the liver's kind of one of those powerhouse organs, like you said, your favorite organ, because it just ties into all of our organ systems basically, and if it's not able to mop up all that toxicity, then we'll experience symptoms in every area of the body, even like brain fog and stuff too. Yeah.
What are some herbs and plants that we can use to help support the liver?
So I love what are considered hepatic bitters. So they're plants that have that bitter taste and bitter quality to them. They're often really good at stimulating the detoxification process of the liver. So those are like yellow dock, dandelion. Dandelion is super good. Dandelion greens and dandelion root. I love burdock for liver, and also it's a blood cleansing herb, but I mean, the liver cleanses the blood. So burdock's also really nourishing for the liver. Milk thistle seed is amazing for liver. I love turmeric. Turmeric has that like bitter quality as well. That's really good. And then there are herbs that actually provide the nutrients that the liver needs. So those bitter hepatics are more like stimulating to the liver, which is good because it needs to be stimulated to detoxify. But at the same time, when it's in overdrive constantly, it also needs more nutrition and more like vitamins and minerals actually to like give it the energy, give our body the energy and the liver the energy that it needs to do the job that it does. And so that's kind of why I created my Revitaliver blend, the tea blend, because that one's more of a nutritive tea. It's not going to help as much with detoxification as it is with nourishing the body. And so dandelion leaf is in there, alfalfa, parsley, nettle, like all of these really green herbs are almost like a green juice version of herbs, which I love. So they just kind of go into the body and they just provide a lot of vitamins and minerals that we're lacking in the diet. And they can be that little like extra buffer of just making sure that we're getting enough nutrition in general for that to function properly.
Amazing. I learned so much and I could pick your brain for hours. So thank you for sharing all of that. How can we work with you, connect with you, follow your content online, buy some of your amazing teas and blends and what you offer and all the good stuff?
Yeah. So I am mostly on Instagram, I would say. I am, I feel like I'm a one social media kind of person at the moment. If like it's already that much, you know, then that's enough for me for now. So my Instagram is Wholesome Mama, my handle. And I'm definitely more present on stories on there. I just like to share, especially as I'm making the medicines, I often share about them. Like as I'm kind of in their presence, I'm like, oh, like I like to talk about them in those kind of times. And then I also try as much as I can to share some of the other like lifestyle and wellness tips that I pick up or that I teach others that you can incorporate at the same time as incorporating herbal medicine. And I'm always available in there. I won't say always, but you can send me a DM and then in my work hours,
I love it.
I will respond and often, you know, when I want to, you know, but yeah, I'm available through there for any questions. I do really love to support people on this journey and just make sure that you're getting what you need and the right things. And if you have any hesitations or questions about medication interactions or anything like that, then I would love for people to come to me instead of just guess along the way. I'm always happy to provide support. And that can happen either through my Instagram or through my website is wholesomemama.com. And that's where I have my online store with my products. So I have teas and tinctures and capsules. And then I have a few different additional products like some natural herbal face products and some food grade products. And so those are all available on my website. Currently, I'm mostly just shipping within Canada, but I did have someone from the United States buy some stuff the other day and I didn't realize that I had that option. So I was like, okay, so I guess I can also ship to the United States. And I have local pickup in Ottawa as well. And so just for anyone in the surrounding kind of area, it kind of can get to you faster in that way. And yeah, you can always reach out to me for any questions.
Amazing. Thank you, Jenna.
Before
I ask you the final question, anything else you'd like to share or that maybe we didn't cover that, you know, speaks to your heart that you'd like to leave our listeners with?
Ooh.
We've covered a lot.
Yeah. I just think that one thing that I like to share is that herbal medicine is often like a really nice gateway into all of these other healing modalities that we know and that we learn about. And so one way that you can support your body and your mind and your nervous system when you're on a healing journey is just starting by nourishing the body with plants before you dive into those more extreme areas of healing. I just find that if you have a little bit more capacity in the nervous system, you can get so much more out of healing modalities like mushrooms or, you know, plant medicine journeys and deeper healing work because your body is in another level of safety. Safety to, you know, experience and explore everything that comes up and that doesn't take you into that state of overwhelm. So I do like to kind of put that out there that if you are someone that's on that kind of journey, then often a wonderful step just to introducing yourself to plant medicine in general is working with these more nourishing everyday plants and getting to know them, you know, first. And yeah.
Yeah, I love it. So my final question, which I ask the same question for all of my guests, and it's funny because you mentioned that you always butcher quotes and stuff. But
oh my God, no!
My question is, what's your favorite quote or mantra or intention and why?
Oh my.
You can make it up or like butcher it. It's fine.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I love Ram Dass, and for years I have listened to Ram Dass and just read his books and just, learned from him and his teachings. And I really love his quote, "We're all just walking each other home." I know that that's a little like maybe cliche or something, but I just love those words. And I think that oftentimes, especially now in the world that we're living in, we can get so caught up in just everything that we have to deal with on a regular basis, on a day-to-day basis, or everything that's going on in the world. And we forget that main quality of just like being a loving being and trying to exude as much love and compassion and acceptance as we can, because at the end of the day, no matter what job we have or where we live or anything, that we're all headed toward the same destination, right? And so one of the most life-changing things you can do is just be that person for someone else and allow other people to be that person for you, and just create more like loving community. And I think that's one of my
Be here
faves.
now, be loved now.
Be here now. Yeah. Just anything that Ram Dass says, just, put it on the t-shirts and, try to take it with us. Cause
thank you, Jenna. This was a beautiful conversation. Thank you for your wisdom.
Thank you. Have a good day.
J'espère que cette conversation awesome t'a inspiré. Et d'ailleurs, I would love to hear back from you. Rejoins Karmakin sur les réseaux sociaux and tag me in a post pour partager ce que tu retiens de cet épisode. Je serais vraiment grateful aussi si tu pouvais me laisser un rating and review pour le podcast. Ça me permet d'avoir un impact positif sur plus de gens comme toi. Merci beaucoup d'avoir été à l'écoute, and until next time, je te souhaite une journée awesome.